Satnam, everyone. Hello
Waheguru.
and welcome to the conversation and welcome Kirpal. I'm very happy that you took some time off to talk to us. Hello.
Well, thanks for having me.
Kirpal Singh, tell us a little bit about yourself so that the audience can get to know you. Who are you? Where are you?
Okay, so I'm in a French pilgrimage place called Lourdes, which is kind of the most important French type of pilgrimage. Maybe not as important as Santiago de Compostela, but quite well known. And I'm here because we are living close to the valley with my wife. Planning to make a big yoga retreat center not far away from here, like an hour's drive away from here, very high up in the mountains, in the natural reserve, protected mountain reserve between Spain and France. So there's a lot of wilderness out there with some bears of wolves and our future retreat center. So we're basically here. Lourdes is a nice place to come to because there are nice cafes that you can have good food and see many tourists. It's a very touristy place. And it's kind of, that's how mundane life works when you get spiritual, because then you look at your Christian brothers and sisters and you actually, in your heart, salute them, and kind of wish them that their pilgrimage is going well and that they're having a good time. And it's very, very multilingual. You can see everything. You can see Indian restaurants, African restaurants, because obviously Christians are everywhere and they come here. For them it has an importance. And I enjoy that. It's not quite in France, if you know what I mean. It's France, but it's also one of these places like whatever, Pisa or Florence, you hear so many languages, you're not in Italy anymore. It's like an international place somehow.
Right.
So this is where I am, in a hotel.
Excellent.
Are
you going to do a training?
Yeah, we are having a training not far away from here. Level 1 and level 2 trainings happen in the end of the year, always in the end of the year. And we are not installed in our future place because it needs a lot of work, but we have found a very nice location, like 2 hours drive from here, where we're running trainings. Yeah, and in the future, obviously, we will be in the national park. UNESCO World Heritage, so kind of quite spectacular, beautiful setting, but not before, optimistically, 2027, maybe end of 2026, because the renovation is going to be very long.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Kirpal, the first thing I see is that you are very colorful today. We sometimes are used to seeing the teachers dressing in white, so maybe we can talk about colors a little bit. How do you feel about colors?
Well, I realized one thing, so 2 things about colors. First of all, there's a difference between what you do in your private life and what you do in your limelight life. So to me, this is a conversation between a dear friend of mine, you are a dear colleague of mine, but it's also there's something relaxed here. I find that over the years, the borders between being a teacher trainer or teacher and being a private person, they become much more transparent. And so I don't want to kind of, just be the official person, and also just, present myself as I walk on the streets of Lourdes or the streets of Paris. Colors are important because they show that I'm part of this world. I'm not about to disappear. I'm not kind of out there on doing something exclusively in the service of the teachings by just kind of, whatever, delivering them. But I'm also just here as a person who likes whatever, good ice cream or a nice hot chocolate or stuff like that. I just feel, if kept in balance, all these things, they have their place in the spiritual life.
Yeah, I think you're touching upon two points that are very interesting and relevant to me. One is that this line that disappears between teaching and life. And I think it's natural. I hear some people, I've been to some yoga classes where the teacher speaks in this funny voice. and they are not them. You spoke to them in the reception, and then suddenly, and now we will do this and do that, and let's lift the legs into the air and feel the. And you're like, that's not your voice. What are you doing? No, so
Absolutely.
it sounds like they are not real. They are putting on a mask. We talked about masks, and today is Halloween. So I did a special on Halloween last week about fear and masks and things like that. But today is also relevant, right? How we present ourselves to the world. And I believe that whoever we are when we teach and whoever we are when we don't teach is the same. But at the same time, there is a like, for example, the uniform that we wear, right? The uniform serves a purpose and is useful. But then, can we be the same when we are teaching and when we are at home, in the sense that we don't change the mask that much, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I had a beautiful conversation the other day, because obviously people, they also kind of buy themselves stuff here. You have these civilians who are coming, but for the pilgrimage, they often have a little special garb. You know, they look like nurses maybe, but in reality they're on this pilgrimage. So you can get these garbs here. There's a lot of white cotton around, and so I had this beautiful conversation with these people who are selling these things, and I just thought, okay, maybe in what these Christian guys are having here, maybe there's something in for me, something white, for example. So I got myself a nice woolen, very thick woolen jumper. And I feel really great with it. And to me, this is also building bridges, in the sense that some people in the region here, they wear these, they wear this, like whatever, shepherds or people who are working physically outside, they have these white jumpers, or maybe the gray version of that. And so I'm kind of partly dressing like them, but it also fits in with what I do, because I like to wear white a lot, as much as I can. So this is kind of when you live with the Romans, dress like the Romans. Mm-hmm. So there's this thing. But at the same time, I will never be a Roman. I'm just this spirit, who lives in this body, who has now decided to live in this part of the country. So it's about finding the right compromise, staying yourself, but also kind of taking on some of the garb that the people have here, because it creates connections.
Yeah. Right, definitely. And yeah, sometimes the uniform that we utilize is more a barrier than a connection.
Yeah.
So and I feel that a lot with Kundalini Yoga, particularly due to the turban and the banner, right? And there is another thing as well. The other thing I was going to mention, there was two things. The other thing is, we want the best for our children. And when it comes down to dressing children, we don't dress them in dark, oppressive colors. Like right now, winter is starting here, and you go to the street, everybody's dressed in very dark colors, grays and blacks. And we don't do that with children. We dress them in very light white colors, natural colors, or very colorful, like a lot of bright colors, kind of like what you're wearing today, like very colorful. And I think if we instinctively, naturally want the best for them, and we want to dress them like that, is because we want them to have a colorful life and enjoy life, and have the virtues of what the colors are doing for them. So I really appreciate that. But then on the other side, then there is the uniform that we have to wear. Well, some parts of it we have to wear. Some parts are more optative, like optional. But there is the uniform, no? Like I will. Let me just talk personally with you about the turban for me, right? By the way, anybody who is listening and watching, this is a conversation with Kirpal Singh. Kirpal and I, we are in a group of men, and we used to meet very regularly, now less regularly, but we've been meeting for many years, and it's just like a group of men having a spiritual inclination, and we would have conversations about anything in life, and it's a great opportunity to open up ourselves. So let me mention what my thoughts are about the turban, for example. I think it's like similar to the dressing white. I love wearing white, but sometimes I will just not put it when I'm at home, just because it's like to tell myself I'm not teaching right now. And even though I'm just, it may seem like a contradiction, but it's more like a paradox that, yes, there is no boundaries between the time when I'm teaching and the time when I'm home, but at the same time, there's times when I'm relaxing. So like you started saying, I'm more relaxing now, I'm not teaching, right? That's why you are more naturally, dressed more naturally. Then the concept of the turban comes into me as well, because, well, to teach Kundalini Yoga, turban is not compulsory, but is highly recommended. And I've always been like in a little bit of an internal fight with the turban because I don't like wearing it. I don't like the image that it projects. But the technology works. And when I wear it, I know how it feels. And my thoughts are more contained and I am more focused and less dispersed and I'm more connected. So the turban does what it has to do. It's just that I don't like the image of the turban. So when I started the YouTube channel, I was asking myself, am I going to wear the turban or not? And then I said, well, I'm going to be teaching, and I'm going to be teaching some things which are from Kundalini Yoga, even though many times I'm not, because like right now I'm doing a course on Yoga Sutras, which is not necessarily Kundalini Yoga, even though Kundalini Yoga could benefit from that as well. So I could choose not to wear it. But then at the same time, I feel the benefit of wearing it. So should I do it? Should I not? So there's always been this kind of line that is hard for me with the relationship with the turban. Yeah. But I wear it. At the end, I decided, I will choose when I want to wear it. But at the end, I've always wore it for every video. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah. I mean, I can confess that for me, it's also partially a personal vanity, because I always knew I would be bald one day. And I thought, okay, I'm like, at that time, when I took the turban, I was like in my end 30s or early 40s. So I'm going to jump into these teachings and I'm going to give up. I'm going to pay the price that it's going to ask me to go into the teachings, because there's always a price to pay. So I paid my price, but I said, if I do it, I will do it full on. So that was my thing. But I already knew I would be bald. Okay. So I just thought, okay, if I can have the same image, the same projection, thanks to the turban over the decades to come, then at least that gives me a certain thing that is also going to carry me. It's going to carry me in my bad days. It's going to carry me in my good days. It's going to give me clarity. And I admire people who in their 60s, they can take off the turban and throw their great lion's mane around in the air, and these nice little slow motion things, of the whatever, the sporty guys, But I can't do that. I have my turban, and that works very well, and I can play with that, and. Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've also relaxed about being bald, and I also walk around occasionally without a turban, just because it's practical. Come out of the bathroom in a camping site or something like that. I don't make it a big deal. I know that some people, they kind of want their head covered at every time, because I'm not like that. But I don't make it a big deal anymore to kind of, I must hide the fact that I'm without a turban. That's not in my life anymore.
But you are a Sikh as well, right?
Yeah, to me, the Sikh thing was actually a very, very important step. At one point, I just realized that Kundalini Yoga in itself is not going to be my whole experience. For me, the Sikh experience is important. And I didn't, obviously, you never know what this is going to give you. It's like a love affair, when you marry somebody, you don't know where you're going to end up. But what I realized was that the experience of being a Kundalini yogi was one thing, but the added dimension for me is being a Sikh. That's very clear. And I mean, not that I've understood the whole thing. I just perceive it's a constant learning, but yeah, I personally completely identify as Sikh.
Yeah, I feel I have the feeling for you that that for you meditation and yoga is much more about Simran and the bunnies and reading them and meditating. Maybe I'm wrong, no, but the feeling I get from you is always that it's more about kirtan, Shabbats, having the mantra within and just vibrating and things like that.
Well, I know that this is somehow where I'm heading to, but I can't say that it works the way I thought it would. I'm always amazed how much it doesn't work the way I want it. As soon as I put my will into okay, let's sing a Shabbat, let's get proficient in this or that, it doesn't work. So there's really something about also being humble enough to say, well, maybe this is not about singing the Shabbat, maybe this is not about being a musician, maybe this is not about doing it, because religion is not something you do. It's something that flows through you. And yeah, I definitely have something at occasions where it flows, but it doesn't always flow. And I have to respect that. I have to respect that. The guru actually is not at my command. I'm at the command of the guru. So that has in many ways also being a part of my path. To not be able to just sit down on a stage and please myself by singing a Shabbat or doing similar. Yes, it turns out that sometimes that's what it is, but I can't say that this is where I feel I'm supposed to go. I feel this is maybe where it's going to end up with, but I'm on the process towards whatever it's going to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think mostly at the beginning when we begin yoga, we don't know anything, so we have to follow recipes. So they tell us about the jabs in the morning, the cold shower, the kriya, and the singing, and so on. And we do those things that they tell us because we are still experimenting and trying to find our own relationship with the teachings. And especially as we mature, also our relationship to the teachings mature, and we find our own personal connection to the divine. For me, it's kind of what Ramana Maharshi used to teach, the self-inquiry and going into the self. So my practice is not about what I do in the morning or not. It's about during the day going into that feeling of the self, of being aware of everything that is happening. If I'm speaking to someone, is going into that space where I'm listening to the other person from that state of consciousness. And for me, that's the deepest practice. And that's where I feel more the flow. You were talking about this flow. So I feel the flow to come in much more when I'm in that space than if I am trying to do anything, even though I will do my own practices. But that's what connects me to that state of flow, which is it's funny the way you were telling about that flow. I was thinking about because I'm so much into the Yoga Sutras right now that I'm hearing Patanjali's voice, and in one of the Yoga Sutras he talks about there is two main things to do. One is the practice, and the other is the let go, to be not attached. So, and it's like a paradox because practice is like keeping up, and the not attached is surrender, right? So it's let it go. And the flow is part of this let it go, but then how can we make the practice part of that letting go? So for me, is this concept of going back into the self. I'm wondering, what is it for you? What is your personal practice? And I don't mean what you do in the mornings or anything. I mean in the day-to-day, during the moment, during life, right now, as you are listening to me before speaking, what is it that you do for you to connect to the divine?
Great question. But first of all, I enjoy listening to you because I definitely feel that this is required. It's required to be able to go into the listening to oneself. So
Kirpal, your image froze for a few seconds.
I'll repeat.
Yes.
First of all, I enjoy listening to you because I do appreciate that we are having a similar perception. It's not just the doing, it's the letting go, and letting go means let God come through. So first of all, I appreciate it. Something that helps me a lot is listening to my own voice, actually appreciating that voice, appreciating the surprises that it creates for myself. Because when I speak slowly enough, I'm not just delivering a flow of words that is coming through my mouth. I'm actually appreciating the words as they get formulated. You get a lot of background noise here. Is it okay?
It's pretty
That's
good
fine.
now. Thank you.
Okay. So I would respond to your question, which was, what do you currently do at this moment by being within yourself outside of the practice? Well, I listen to you. I enjoy listening to you, and I actually connect to exactly that dimension, which is the self. Somehow that resides within here. And I listen to my own voice vibrating from exactly that space. So not from the space of the mind that needs to deliver a lot of words that come out in a semi-automatic fashion, but actually a voice that brings deep enough. By bringing deeply enough, I mean really physical dimensions, or physical dimensions of allowing the voice to vibrate down the spine and over to the rib cage and feel the support of the navel, even connected to the base in the pelvis. These are practices that are very common in Nat yoga, and I mean I'm just surprising myself because you asked the question. But this is what I'm actually just doing. So I'm just practicing Nat yoga in a very informal way. No, I mean a stage, but not a stage, an instrument, but not an instrument. We're having a conversation, and I'm actually just enjoying the vibration of my own voice in my own body. And there's a sort of a feeling of congruence. Okay? What vibrates corresponds to what wants to happen. Something like that. Does that make sense?
What vibrates corresponds to?
What wants to happen through me,
Right.
Sometimes we have that language that we're channeling things. Okay, I don't like the word channeling a lot because it sounds as if we're making something up.
Yeah.
The teachings are not an invention. Okay, we're giving the teachings, but we still give the teachings through the physical body that we are sitting in as incarnated spirits. Okay, so I can go into the mode of, I'm just a spirit, and I go floating off, and I have this kind of funny language, maybe like a little bit what you said before, we're doing this kind of airy-fairy language. But I'm not in the airy-fairy language mode now. I'm really in the mode of, hey, spirit, I am the spirit. I identify with the spirit, but I give to the spirit my body. But by offering my body to the spirit, I actually allow my body to become a vessel. And that means that the body volunteers to vibrate and to, give its breath and give its blood and give its passion and give its emotion and give its all, so that the spirit can thrive and kind of come in and in a way inspire me, literally inspire me. Yeah, inspiration coming from the word spirit, something like that.
Yeah, you're channeling your own spirit in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's great discovery we're making here with what you're saying. Yeah. What do I do at the moment in order to be within myself? Well, I'm channeling my spirit by speaking to you in response, enjoying the vibration that it gives within me, but also enjoying your response and taking it deeply in, not with any preconception of, now I have to bring in this or that. I'm following your input, and I'm responding.
Lovely. I'm appreciating the paradox as well. I love paradoxes of how the more you allow the feeling into your body, the more you are channeling that spirit. How the body, mind, spirit, right? Connection. But somehow, when some people go into the spiritual, they go out, they go away. that you're actually suggesting the opposite. Is calm down into the body,
Yeah.
which is interesting because the kind of things that you were describing as you were speaking, feeling the voice, the vibration, what is coming down, how it is coming up. This is what we do when we are chanting mantras.
Yeah.
But can we do that? Can we allow ourselves to have the similar attention, consciousness, projection, the same feeling as we are chanting mantras when we are speaking? Can we do that while speaking so that every word becomes like a mantra? That's really powerful.
Yeah.
And the breath as
Yeah,
well.
it's I hear what you're saying. I hear that a bit like we're taking ownership of our own body, conscious ownership. Okay, because well, it's very easy to kind of have the semi-automatic language. You know, in French, I always joke. You know, the French, they meet each other, they say "ça va, ça va." Ah bah si ça va, ça va. You know, they haven't said anything. How are you? I'm well. I'm well. How are you? Yeah, I'm well. There's nothing. Let's say mostly there's not a lot of consciousness in that. But taking ownership of the body, in the sense that you just say it, is actually yoga is the high. What is it? Communication is the highest yoga. Yeah. I discover through what you say that I'm actually able to do something I didn't realize I was doing, or I didn't realize I could do, something like that. And that brings in a new dimension of the divine that wants to sink into me, because I have incarnated as a spirit. I'm living in a human body, in a physical body, but the spirit is the one who gives me life, and that spirit is basically waiting for me to lend myself more completely to it. So when I say taking ownership of my body, means the spirit takes ownership of my body, and the body volunteers to go into that experience.
Yes, I have a feeling that there is something that I experience that is similar to what you are describing as well, because I know that you also translate. And this is something that I discovered because for many years, when we were still not teachers, let's say, we were translating others. And I did that a lot with Shiv Charan, but maybe some other teachers as well. And as we are translating, we are the body for the new words to come out in the other language, and we have to capture the essence of what is being said that is aligned with what we say. Not just the right words, but actually the essence of what's coming up, the spirit behind the words, the message behind the words that are being spoken. And after so many years, now I'm in a position where I am teaching. I am doing these videos in YouTube, or I am teaching a group of students, and I am still translating. I'm still translating those messages that I receive from Shiv Charan, but also the messages that I'm receiving from my own spirit right now and the teachings, and I'm still putting it into words, and I feel like I'm still, this concept of the flow, right? I'm still part of this flow, what allows this flow to happen. And I have the feeling that the way you were describing it is the same with you. Like you have also translated a lot, so you've learned to tune into that and message, and then somehow, because the spirit doesn't speak with words, it speaks in a different way, right? There is some subtle feelings and ideas that come, and then as they come into the body, and particularly interesting, as we really bring it down into the body, as we make it go down, maybe even to our navel, right? Then as it comes out, then it can take the shape that people will understand with words.
Yeah,
it's difficult to describe.
No, it's a brilliant comparison, and I totally agree. There was this time when I wanted to do a collection of clips of Shiv Charan Singh, kind of like a little bit like a dictionary. So I had these word entries that I extracted from transcriptions that I made of his teachings, and I basically just thought, okay, so what is this all about? This is about rewrite the script of your life, experience whatever you are, client, do this, do that. And then at one point I realized that each time that he changes the subject and he goes into a different number consciousness, his voice changes. Okay. And that was my biggest learning experience also to become a consultant myself, because okay, numbers, you can learn about numbers in a very mechanical way. We all start with it. So number 4 has to do with neutral mind. Neutral mind has to do with Guru Ramdas, and so that has to do with service. You have a number 4 in the date of birth, so you do service, and this is about Guru Ramdas. And, we can have a little bit disparate talk about what the number 4 is necessary, okay, to start with. But what I realize is that when Shiv talks about the number 4, there is a different sound in the voice. And if one is able to get that frequency within oneself, then all of a sudden the number talks to you. You're not just repeating what you have learned from a book about the number 4. All of a sudden you hear the sound of the number 4. And all of a sudden you hear why Shiv is going into this very soft mode, because he's now actually going to go and embrace the situation in a different way from the neutral mind. And that means that there's some other kind of atmosphere that happens. And that atmosphere, literally, this is really what I hear myself say here, that surprises me, is his voice is basically carrying the intelligence, the divine intelligence of Guru Ramdas by the sound of the voice. Okay, and that is something that everybody can learn. It's just having the ears to receive that there is a shift of gear from number 3 to number 4, or from number 7 to number 4, because these are shifts that you can hear in the sound of the voice of the person.
Yes. I was just reflecting this morning before we spoke how we have all these inner voices, like a cacophony, speaking within, and they are not always in harmony. They are generally like a fragmented self trying to speak to another part of your fragmented self. And all these voices that you are describing, like number 4, they exist within us. So when Shiv does this change of tone of voice, it's like he's connecting to that aspect of himself. And all these voices within us, which are sometimes repressed or unheard, or like you don't matter so much, and they create conflict and chaos and then stress. And then that manifests outside as well, stress in relationships. I wonder if there is some specific method to connect to all these inner voices and to learn to tune into them in such a way. Like number 4 you are describing, with the subtlety and the softness and the intimacy of the 4 and the service and so on. And well, Karan Kriya definitely helps for that, right? Because we know the qualities that are associated with those voices. But I wonder if there is any method to find the harmony. You are also a musician and you do not yoga, no? So trying to tune in all these inner voices so that it's not a cacophony, but it's actually a symphony somehow. Make it turn into a symphony, and everything is natural. The flow is natural. I was talking to Ardaas Singh last week or the week before. We were having a conversation here in the channel as well, and we were talking a lot about art. And I mentioned these geishas. When they move, they are doing art, right? The way of moving is artful. Every movement of the hand is conscious. Every little thing that she does is conscious, right? I'm talking about the maximum artistry, right? The pure master of the art of being a geisha. Now, we are talking about something similar here when we are talking about tuning into those inner voices. And at the same time, so that's the internal connection, and then there is the external to the channeling of our spirit, right? And we are letting the spirit go down into the body where there is all these 5 voices as well, and make it part of our everyday, not just when we are chanting mantras, but like right now when we are speaking. Can we tune in to that part within us? I wonder if there is a method to do that, you know, to learn to grow that art of being this symphony of voices within and channeling the spirit from without.
Well, first of all, I would say that your voice invites me to connect to that dimension. That is what I perceive now as I talk to you and as I respond to you. What it also makes me feel is that there is a tone of voice in which we speak to ourselves, kind of our internal inner dialogue. It also has a certain tone. Okay? So you can be in a very sharp, you can relate to yourself in a very sharp way, and that is just the tone of the voice, is the inner voice, and then the language will come along with that. In my case, that is not really what I think to be very beneficial for myself if I talk to myself like that. Because if my inner voice has that kind of snide, that sharp, nasty tone to it, then the thoughts will also be nasty. Okay, so when I heard you speak, I almost heard at the same time, well, I wouldn't say Shiv's voice, because Shiv's voice is not really what I hear when I'm in that mode, but I just hear the voice of myself talking to myself in a very caring way, caring, soft way. That also brings me to a state of non-fear, or keeps me in a state of fearlessness, and also of receptivity. I can be open. I can dare to be open. I can open up further. I can dare to receive, which is not always easy for me. But you see, what I actually distill from what we are saying here is the tone of the voice is more important than the content. Because the tone of the voice that I have towards myself, the tone of the voice that you have towards me, or that I have towards you, is going to carry the essential message. And that essential message should be induced in an absolutely conscious way. Okay, I want this type of conversation with Ardaas Singh. I want to have this type of relationship, this type of conversation with any given person. And that means it comes from the sound of my voice. The sound of my voice is inducing the rest. This is what I hear you say, and this is what I hear also what we are doing here.
Yeah, that's so true. I've clearly identified how that changes in my daughters. Like over the years, I've learned to recognize before a conflict arises, where was the change in the voice? So now when I notice one will reply, and again, the content is not important, it's not the message, but I notice the tone of voice changing, and I know if nothing is done, that's going to evolve into a little conflict, which, you know, bless them. They are lovely, and they are so dear to each other and loving, and there's not many conflicts, thank goodness. But when there's going to be one, I can notice it in the tone of voice. And just this week, and I remember at moment, something was happening, the voice tone changed, and I was just in the moment, watch out how you're speaking to each other. Just notice that change. And they immediately understood it, what it meant, right? So they calibrated themselves and changed it. And I felt that was like a moment of becoming aware there is something emotional happening and I'm not voicing it, so my voice changes because I'm not voicing the emotion, right? And then so if I notice that emotion, then I can process whatever is happening within me, no? In a way, and avoid the conflict, really. Like you were saying, the communication is the highest yoga, so that's, yeah, I mean, this is it, isn't it?
To me, this is a real conversation that we're having here. Because it also makes me understand that if I want to push it a bit further, okay, so I have my emotions, and these emotions are, my own animal life, with my hormones that are doing what they're doing, and my moods that are also there, and they're now sitting somewhere in the body. But they're also charged with my personal story. Some of this charge is going to be triggered by certain sounds. Okay? And these sounds can be songs, and they can be the sounds of voices. My story is just waiting to be released and reinvested in my conversation if I'm not aware that this is actually what the whole world is always trying to do. The whole world is actually behind my emotions, trying to trigger my emotions for their purposes. Okay, so I take an example. What's her name? The big pop singer, the biggest pop singer of all times at the moment. She's super big. The lady.
That's a bad question to ask me.
Okay. Taylor Swift. Okay. So my daughter is interested in Taylor Swift. We have a conversation. She's critical of Taylor Swift. But, okay, I say Taylor Swift is the big person. Okay. So I'm checking out Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift, she is successful because she is able to dig into the emotions of her audience and actually have them relive a part of their story. And that is somehow how things work in this world. Okay, Hollywood works because Hollywood digs into your emotions. Emotions mean money. If I have a handle on your emotions, that means I have my hand in your pocket. This is the way it goes. Yeah.
And unfortunately, drama more than good emotions.
Exactly. So, in a way, I'm kind of talking about the dark side of what it means to use one's voice. Can I use my voice in such a way so that I'm actually not playing out whatever patterns are hooked onto my raw emotional energy? Can I play out my own voice in such a way that our communication is going to continue to actually bring my kundalini up and my spirit down? Because this is what communication is. Okay, my upper and my lower, your upper and your lower part, they're kind of creating this beautiful, paradoxical, artistic explosion of intelligent light we're having here. So again, it is the conscious investment of voice in order to play the emotions in such a way that it makes sense for me as a spiritual being. That is the real art here. Okay, so lo and behold, my Nat yoga is actually not just happening by singing kirtan. It is actually happening in my conversation with you, just by realizing what we're trying to formulate is actually the real practice. The real practice of the yoga is play your voice in such a way that the emotions don't betray you, because there's an old story in them, but actually play the emotions in such a way that they actually cleanse themselves and are more and more able to actually serve the real purpose, which is I'm a human being living a human life, but the spirit is the one who's actually giving me that life. Again, it's surrendering to the spirit. It's
yes,
allowing the spirit to play out even other galaxies of experiences, other dimensions of experience, other nuances, little semitones, discover little other dimensions within myself.
Talking about making symphony, right, with the inner voice.
It is, yeah, isn't it a symphony? I mean, isn't this what it is? And I mean, you have this beautiful smile that I've always loved. Command the humor you are in. How can I actually pretend to be a yogi if I can't command my humors? If I can't command myself to be actually in a mode that is actually, first of all, agreeable to myself. Okay, hey, gee, we're all fine.
Yeah. I was talking to someone recently, and I wanted to have a conversation with her. So I wasn't just going to go away, because I wanted to engage with her in a conversation, and she was constantly going into a combination of fear and complain. It was a combination of both. And complaining about the states of things and fear of what may come. So kind of like these two things linked together. And I could feel it so clearly that she was hooked by those emotions, that they sell them so well in the media. And not just the media, but everyone around us does the same. We fall into the drama because the drama sells. And then I'm telling you about my own drama, and that hooks you into your drama. And we agree to complain to each other about the world because we have fun with that movement of emotion, which is, there's energy in motion. So it's kind of fun to be depressed sometimes in that way. And we will not confront each other because I don't want to confront myself, so I will not confront you about your drama. And I could notice that I was talking to her and she was in this inner game and trying to hook me with it. And I would try to direct the conversation in a different path. And she would notice that I'm not interested in this, so she would look for another thing and then go into that, complaining into that other thing and going on with that. And it was quite sad that she was so caught up and she was losing so much energy in that distraction of the drama, and which, a lot of the issues that are coming to us in the world, they could be real anyway, but we lose so much energy that we could be employed for something else. And that's the way they keep us distracted, all these dramas happening. I mean, and there is genuine dramas, and you can always find more. Right now, it's horrible, the situation in Spain with all these floods. There's so many people dying, and there is an authentic disaster, and you can feel it for the following weeks. There's going to be a lot of blame, and why did this happen, and how are we not ready, and all that. And part of that conversation is necessary. Can we have that conversation without falling in the drama of the emotion and being hooked and losing all our energy into that? And that's real challenge. How to deal with those issues which make people really afraid, from the drama to the fear, without just losing ourselves in there. And, I mean, that's why the spirit came to this planet, right? And we have to learn these things, how to deal with these material things in a way that we don't get lost. That's challenging.
Yeah, the world around us is good in sucking our energy, kind of monopolizing our attention and getting energy from us. But identifying oneself as a spirit also is somehow accepting that gives you command, and that command then actually also has consequences in your life. A very practical example: I in my teens, early 20s, I was always somebody who had a lot of people around who would kind of share their personal stories with me, people much older, okay? And I mean, obviously one has a certain pride at that age if that happens, but I felt that it was actually not a very healthy attitude, because I would basically just take up their stuff, okay? I would suck up that stuff. And one of the ways to not do that is to also learn to speak with a voice that is sober enough, what you just described, sober enough to signal, okay, and now what? Now, the sound of the voice already kind of brings myself into another mode, brings the other person into another mode. And this is an art, the art of on the one hand listening, but then not taking on other people's stuff, and also not allowing other people to take up our energy, which is also what people do. People just discharge on us, and they're taking our time. There again, spirit is about command. Command in our life comes from our spirit, not from our body. So whatever, conversation with somebody on the campsite where our camper van is parked, and he wants to bring me in a whole conversation about whatever, you know. Some people are actually pretty out on the borders of society when they live in a camper van like we do. So you really meet kind of some quite odd people. Some people who are kind of on the margins of society and who live their life from one place to the other with very little money. And then you meet other people who have nice new camper vans. So all kinds of people. I mean, the camper van life gives you a very interesting new perspective on what kind of different possibilities one has to place oneself socially in life. So this guy, he starts the whole conversation with me, and I know we have to go to an appointment. And I was observing how my voice was actually taking really care to actually reflect back to him, I heard you. You have a place in my perception. I'm hearing what you're saying, and at the same time slowly bringing it towards, now we're going to have to roll without being impolite. Yeah. So this is all, I'm contributing to our subject of the melody that you speak with, and how that melody actually can filter things, can also negotiate to transit from one type of conversation to another type of conversation. There's a command in that, Satnam, I have to go, but it's being brought about in such a way that there's a slow, how do you call it? Yeah, it leads over in a very natural way. So it's a way talking about Nadia.
Sounds similar to what we have to do with our inner voices as well.
Yeah.
The same you were describing about that person and how they were, in their emotion. The same thing we have to do in our speaking to ourselves when that voice within us comes up like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see you as a father. I can see how you will probably, the voice of the father for your daughters is going to be also part of the voice they're going to integrate.
Yes.
When they're going to hear how that spirit, the spirit of that man who is their father, is actually going to step in as long as their own voice is not yet developed. So they will hear the voice of their father, who is kind of calm enough, yet also accommodating to what's going on, yet also steering the conversation so that the emotions don't take over in a way that actually doesn't serve soul.
Yes, exactly. I mean, when I was intercepting the conversation between my daughters last week, and it's about, what do I want to do here? If I'm going to intervene, am I trying to teach something? Well, if anything I have to teach is just consciousness. So it's just not to tell them what they have to do or what they have to change, but just let them know, did you notice that your voice tone changed? Just to bring that awareness. And then just by being aware, they are very intelligent girls, so they know, well, that's going to have an effect. So I changed my tone of voice, something is happening, Kirpal, let me ask you something. You are a mature man, you've gone through many phases, and you've gone from that young man that you were talking about, people were coming to you and so on. What is the most important learning that you have acquired or matured, learned, that helped you to move on in your life from that era where you were to where you are now, that you can be at peace with emotions and the different voices within, and you can relate to somebody who is going through an emotional turmoil and being able to lead them? What is the one more important thing that you would say helped you to mature to where you are right now, and also as a man, as a spiritual man?
Well, that's quite a big question.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I currently would say, which tomorrow might be something different, is that, well, first of all, different people live different experiences. Okay. So my experience is very much the experience of negotiating alignment with the divine. So what does it practically mean? It means, well, okay, I'm a spiritual person, and it doesn't matter if we wear a turban or not. We are all spirit. Okay? So somehow my life is in a constant process of negotiating how much spirit I can actually let into my life. How much spirit can I allow to happen within my life? And allowing the spirit in my life has practical consequences that are not a question of turban or not, beard or not. It's just, can I accept that something works on me, spirit works on me, spirit works through me. This is the natural thing. The spirit is supposed to work through me, is supposed to come into my life. And the more that happens, and the more that actually happens till deep down in the body, not just on a mental level. Okay, I'm in a Raja Yoga course, and we're kind of talking about the philosophy of yoga, and I'm learning so many things. This is a very abstract out there thing. It's just a mental. Practically, yoga means that there is a deep interpenetration, a deep interpenetration of the physical with the spiritual, and the mind is just serving to kind of help that to happen. So if I say that, then I would say that currently my main learning stage and the result of the past years is to allow the 5 dimensions that are made of actually to come into balance. So what do I mean by that? So my picture for that is, if I think of a pyramid, okay, so the pyramid has like 4 sides, and 2 sides are feminine and 2 sides are masculine. So they have to do with the elements. So my water element, so my emotional part, my feminine part that, is flowing, okay, are going up and down. Is a bit like the moon, okay, is guided by the moon. That is one dimension. That is another dimension, which is very much the solar part of myself, the shiny, positive part of myself. That is more kind of in the teachings of the elements, something that's much more about something masculine. And we all have, anyway, these 5 elements. These are the 2 most important ones. Another one that is important is what they call the intuitive feminine. So kind of the part of me that is able to feel, that is able to sense what's happening within me, that is able to perceive what other people are feeling, and kind of connect to other people through a shared feeling approach. And then in between all of those is kind of the overall regulator, which is what do I hear? What do I hear within myself? What do I hear with other people? What's going on? So the point I'm making is, if I want to ignore that a part of me is a feminine, it doesn't work. Did that come through? I don't know. The connection is not very good.
No, I mean, the image sometimes stopped, but the audio came up through.
Okay. So the point that I'm making is, it is not about just being on the thing, I'm a man. Yeah, I'm a man. And anyway, physically speaking, I'm a man. But it's allowing to find a healthy but happy balance between the feminine parts of myself and the masculine parts. And what I found in recent years is that I needed to allow the feminine parts to play out within myself, to be a little bit more flowy, more flexible, more receptive to what the world was offering me, because the world was talking to me and was offering things to me that I actually couldn't accept. So I would say that currently what I'm learning and what I have crystallized enough to share with you now is really find a happy balance between the masculine and the feminine parts without being identified with any one of those, and use the voice as a regulator, as a means to kind of maintain that balance through all the changes, because we're obviously in communication always asked to adapt to what needs to happen. Yeah, if I have a conversation with you, that's going to be different than with the gentleman that I spoke to in the campground. That means that the balance of my elements is going to be different with you than it is with him. It's always different. It has to change all the time. So I have to kind of always stay in this space of adaptability by not ignoring any part of myself. So this is actually my key word: not ignoring the parts of myself that also need to play out in this life. That's what I would say.
I think that's where, for example, art, the conversation we had with Anand Raj, how important is to have art in your life, because that's connection to the feminine. So that's going to be very important, especially for men, no? Because you are saying, no, we all have the four parts, but if you're a man, it's easier to identify with those parts that are masculine, and it's easier to suppress or put aside the sides that are feminine. So I can recognize for myself as a man how important it is to have art, so that it helps me reconnect to that side as well.
Yeah, I mean, it really plays in both directions. So when I was in my 20s, I was basically assailed by my feminine part, in the sense that it was just too much. I just couldn't handle all that. I mean, there was just so much emotion, so much sensibility. I mean, my whole childhood was basically an onslaught of whatever, people who were discharging their stuff on me. And it was very hard to actually find a male manhood in that. And I would say that the last 25 years of my life have been very much about also accepting being a man and being creative with it, while not neglecting the feminine part, and also by playing them out in healthy ways. Because obviously being a man, there's a way that society tells you how to do it. Being a man with a bit in touch with his feminine part, society makes plenty of propositions on how to do that. Not all of them are healthy.
Society is very corrupt as well. It's not a good place to look for understanding.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Not all of them are healthy. Okay, so there's a healthy way of being a male. There's a healthy way of being a male that has acknowledged and is consciously living his feminine parts. And that is a very nice exploration. Okay. Yeah, I would even say, come on, let's have some pink scarves here. Why not? Really, going in this zone of, okay, you're not supposed to go there, and while doing it gracefully and doing it by not giving away an inch of being in balance. Can we as men be fully man, fully integrated, everything that we are, in a way that actually serves the spirit within us and also encourages other people to live in balance? Because, when Yogi Bhajan says, what is it, healthy, happy, holy, that actually involves a balance, because healthy is always a question of balance. It's not about eating rice every day or doing this much probiotic things or that whatever fashion comes. It doesn't mean that we do a lot of exercise. It means we do the right exercise in the right amount, in the right place, with the right mindset. So this is all about balance. Okay, even the holiness thing. If I've ever understood what holy was, it was in the moments that I was in balance. Okay? So it's like the tightrope walk of being healthy, the tightrope walk of being happy, and the tightrope walk of being holy, and really accepting that these are just moments when you're just in the middle of the road. We don't have to work too hard to balance. And from then daring to take the next step, because you know that life is going to ask you the next step. Life is going to confront you to actually come out of your posture of, now I found how it works. No, man, you have to take the next step, and the next step is going to challenge you to find another refinement of how healthy, happy, holy works, and how your feminine, your masculine, they actually balance.
Always get to the next level.
Get to the next level. Take the next step. Exactly.
That's right. Well, Kirpal Singh, thank you very, very much for the time you gave us and for the wisdom.
Yeah.
Let's have another conversation some other time. I think it was lovely today.
My pleasure. Satnam.
Satnam, thank you very much, and enjoy Halloween. Enjoy everyone Halloween as well. Have a good time, and I'll see you again on the next video. Thank you.
Satnam.